The revolution's begun. The time to stand up has come. We are the rocking of the throne. We are the rocking of the throne.
Change the name of the program in a few minutes. My name is Victor Tiffany. I'm the co-founder of Revolt against Plutocracy. And that was the organization that was behind, founded, and I'm the primary instigator of the Bernie or Bust pledge movement last year that had a lot of establishment Democrats up at night, which is the way we wanted them. I want to thank first Liberty Tree for putting on this amazing democracy convention, and specifically David Cobb for giving me this opportunity to make this presentation, lead this workshop on how we can get progressives elected to Congress, House, and Senate, come hell or high water in 2018. Those of you who are viewing this online, either right now, live, or sometime in the future, it's been shared to you, share it again. It's very important that this whole strategy get distributed. We have to be the media. I'll talk about that. But we start by listening to this 75-minute presentation and sharing it so that other people can get more involved. This is intended to be, just like Bernie or Bust, a movement. But unlike Bernie or Bust, one group of 5 or 6 people can't do it. This has to be a decentralized process, decentralized revolution. So in the next 75 minutes, I'm going to just briefly describe what we did with Bernie or Bust, how we got that going, how we started something. 2 completely unknown guys, actually started a nationwide movement. Then I'm going to pivot to how we're going to apply this to the midterm elections, the same strategy. And then I want to use the entire second half of this workshop to tap your minds, because we're pioneers. We've never done this before. And there's people in the room who have been involved with candidates before who can offer us, and those of us who are watching this, right, leverage activists across the country who will be doing this sort of thing, ideas on how to get progressives elected on the cheap, low-cost electioneering communications, in other words. Bernie or Bust actually began on a street corner in Ithaca, New York in late April of 2015 as a conversation. A friend of mine and I were discussing, how Bernie might run. Is he going to run as a Democrat or an independent or a green or whatever? And I said if he runs as a Democrat, he could win the national election, but he might lose the primaries. He's not going to get to the general election because the primaries are rigged with super delegates and super Tuesdays and super PACs. And we can't just put him on the ballot as a green, what do they call it, socialist green, I think they're called. It's a very, very obscure third party, because he could sue and get his name taken off the ballot. And my friend said, what about a write-in campaign? And in that moment I thought, that's a brilliant idea, because he can't touch us. We have the right to free association. There's nothing he can do about a national write-in campaign, which it turned out was a really stupid idea. Because in 27 states, the candidate has to kind of go along with this. You can't just force the states to count the ballots. The candidate has to actually register as a write-in candidate. But that mistake was a very fortunate mistake, because the idea of, oh, hell with the Democrats, if they don't nominate him, I'm just going to write him in anyway, caught fire. And it caught fire in a big way, and it helped this Bernie or Bust strategy actually take off. I didn't intend with this to actually discover or apply leverage during the primaries. Co-founder, Revolt Against Plutocracy co-founder Patrick Walker had been looking for years on ways to execute extortion. He wanted to extort concessions, policy concessions from the Democrats. And when I came along to him with this idea of a write-in campaign, it clicked for him. This is it. This is how we will extort the Democrats and get our way. And then during the primaries, when we were promoting Bernie or Bust, some people would accuse us of extortion. And I didn't know Patrick even had this idea until I wrote the book, Bernie or Bust, and read his contribution to the book, and and it dawned on me, oh, he was trying to do this all along. I thought we kind of discovered leverage. This idea of applying leverage to a major party during their primaries, it's going to be our candidate, or screw you guys, you're going to lose the general election, is new. It hadn't been done before in history. We were literally pioneers, and that's the subtitle of the book. It's Bernie or Bust, Pioneers of Electoral Revolt, which will be coming out later this year. So leverage has two elements. One, the main thing, the reason we set out to do this, was to make sure our candidate got the primary, won the primary, became the nominee. And two, if not, to help defeat the neoliberal. I'm using generic terms of, rather than Bernie or Bust, think of this as progressive or bust. We're drawing a line in the sand, and we're not crossing over from the progressive side. We're going to stay on the progressive line in the sand, and the Democrats don't want to go along with it, screw them. The Republicans will get elected because we're in a two-party system. Until people open the doors of perception and walk out of the two-party mental prison and start voting third-party candidates, this is where we're at. And I'm not a, well, technically I am a Democrat right now, but I'm not a proud Democrat. I'm not glad to be a Democrat. I'm a Democrat because I'm a revolutionary, not the other way around. And right now, in 2018, progressive or bust, CFAR or lose, which I'll explain what CFAR means in a second, is the way to actually force progressives, force Democrats to choose the progressives in the primaries, in the primary election. So this was, as I said, a stupid idea, and in late December we finally figured out that this write-in idea isn't very good. So we then changed the or bust. We actually debated 3 weeks, because right about then, Bernie or bust phrase and idea was just starting to take off, and we didn't want to change that phrase. I'm going to have Q&A in a little bit.
2007.
Leverage as a strategy, as I said, was brand new. No one had ever done this before in American history, and there was an awful lot of intentional or unintentional misinterpretation of what we were trying to do. A lot of people, Charles Blow in the New York Times, I'm talking to you, distorted what we were doing with or bust. And Comedy Central had a distortion. They were claiming we were going to vote for Trump. Charles Blow explicitly said we want people to stay home. But the header image on our website, on our Facebook page, on our Twitter account, depicts somebody dropping a ballot into a ballot box. So the last thing we wanted was for people to stay home. And what we learned from that, we learned a lot of lessons, but one of the things we learned was, don't count on the media. Be the media. We're going to have to all be the media of sorts. And I know there's media people here, and hats off to you developing this new alternative media to the corporate media. CNN wanted me on the air. When we hit 50,000 pledges, they invited me to come and speak. Through our Facebook page, they got a hold of me. So did Fox News. I got on Fox and essentially depicted the race of Clinton versus Trump as the lesser of two fascists. And I think somebody at CNN caught that and said, "Whoa, we don't want this guy on the air." And I was never contacted to come back in, even though we had developed this Skype relationship in terms of me coming on and talking to Kara Costello in the morning. I was never invited on, but they covered Donald Trump's endorsement by Ben Carson. Whole hour of Donald Trump press conference. And they never bothered calling me. So, corporate media. And MSN never mentioned Bernie or bust. And it's not because they didn't know about it. We were tweeting Maddow. We were tweeting Chris Hayes. Nothing. Never mentioned it. Until after the DNC, when it was locked in stone at that point. And then Maddow asked Bernie Sanders about the Bernie or bust problem. MSNBC was a problem. So we changed, between the time I signed up to do this and now, we changed our movement from CFAR or green to CFAR or lose. CFAR is an acronym. It's a contract. People can take, candidates for office can take. I'm not going to give Marcia one because she is a candidate for Senate. And she's already read it, and she's going to sign the Senate version of one. This is a contract. Remember, most people in this room are old enough to remember 1994. There was a contract with America, led by Newt Gingrich and the House Republicans. And they turned the House red for the first time in decades. I'm going to just hand this back to you, and you can pass it along.
Yeah.
They turned the House red for the first time in decades. So this strategy actually has a proven track record. It works. It may only be a gimmick, but it works. You know who else had a contract on his website? Voters could sign? Does anyone know? This last election? Who had a contract on his website? Donald Trump. These things work. They're not a Republican idea. If you read this contract, it's very clearly not a Republican contract. They don't own, just because they have used this successful tactic, they don't own the idea. This is a left populist contract. Every one of these 11 policy positions on this contract are supported by at least 60% of voters. Some as many as 80. Some of them are the same ones Nick listed in your workshop this morning. $15 minimum wage, right? That's 63%. I remember you saying that. So the reason Medicare for All is not on the contract is because it hovers between 55% support and 65% support. And we have that threshold. Now, when you go to a candidate and ask him or her to sign the contract and become a CFAR candidate, this is a negotiation. This is not a purity test. So if they say their district is Seattle, and they don't want to pull out of CAFCA and NAFTA, or they don't think that'll fly in that district, pull that item off. They can take that off. They can reduce these number of points down to 7 or 8 points. They're still a CFAR candidate as far as we're concerned. And for the purposes of getting the thoughts going for the brainstorm we're going to have later on, we're going to maybe develop memes as well as tactics for low-cost electioneering communication. Think about this meme, or other memes like this. If you don't CFAR, you're not going far. And we mean it. Sam Ronan, so far, has refused to sign it. It's just a gimmick. Well, Sam, guess what? You're going to lose your election. You're going to lose a primary, or you're going to lose a general election. Because we're building the second part of this, the flip side of this contract that we want candidates to sign, is we're building, and we at the national level, but every leverage activist in every congressional district who goes to our activist website and reads this and looks at the tutorials. We have 2 websites, one for candidates to go to, where we have those CFAR, and they can download them, sign them. It's a Word document, so they can modify it. They can add Medicare for All for it if they want, because it's still majority supported by majority. They can shape the contract any way they want, sign it, and hand it off to the leverage activists who sent them to the website. There's a link between this activist website and the candidate's website, but there's no link from the candidate's website to the activist website, because we don't want the candidates necessarily to see what we're doing here. We're tutoring leverage activists. We're explaining the contract concept, and then we're tutoring them on how to do what we did with Bernie or Bust. That's what we mean when we say turnkey revolution. We're showing leverage activists around the country, step by step, how to build a progressive or bust movement. Think of CFAR, because a lot of these points on this contract came from Bernie Sanders' website. So if you want to think about this as Bernie's agenda or bust, you can. But we didn't want to call it that because Sanders might say, wait, that's not exactly my agenda. That wouldn't be good for us or the movement. Another way to think about this is in terms of Naomi Klein's book, No is Not Enough. Here's 11 yeses. Here's 11 ideas. the Democrats are giving us a better deal.
No.
And we're saying, no, you guys aren't in control anymore. The people are taking control. And if you don't want to support our agenda, we're done with you.
Fuck you.
Exactly. If you don't support the people's agenda, we're not supporting you. We don't care if Republicans are going to get elected. We're not supporting neoliberals anymore. And if you can't sign this simple left populist contract with voters, you might just be a neoliberal. And we're not taking any chances. We're not trusting you. Sorry, Sam Ronan, not even you. So I don't know why any progressive wouldn't want to use this. As the author of the contract points out in the primary video on the candidate's website, this is a tool for them. I mean, Republicans use this to win the House. We want 2018 not to be a blue shift over to the House like Mark Pocan was talking about this morning. We want this to be a progressive wave election. We want this to be a continuation of Bernie Sanders' political revolution, and we'll accept nothing less. That's what this is about. Leverage. This is leverage. Now, what if no Democrat signs a CFAR agreement? Then we go to third parties. Because we're locked into a two-party system, we're under no illusion that very many, if any, third-party candidates will win the election. The idea is to use Greens and independent and People's Party candidates at this point as spoilers in the transition from this current corrupt 1/2-party system, this political duopoly that represents two sides of the neoliberal system, into something else. This is think of this as a vehicle people are going to get into and go, let's see, Democrat? No CFAR here, so I'll go to the next stop. It's a vehicle people can use to drive out of this two-party mental prison that we're locked in. Anyway, that's the theory. So as I said, this is Contract for American Renewal. We use the word renewal because it has the biggest, broadest support. You could call it Contract for American Reformation. That probably works pretty well too. Although it's a little slightly more radical sounding than renewal. Renewal has the biggest, broadest support. And if you're winning elections, that's the kind of language you want to use. In fact, go to these two websites. The header, the banner header is Citizens Against Plutocracy. If you go to the activist website, the banner header is Revolt Against Plutocracy. The subtitle is American Movement for Political Renewal. The subtitle here is American Movement for Political Revolution. We want candidates to be comfortable using this CFAR as a cudgel against their primary opponents and general election opponents. These guys are making mere promises, empty promises. We've had empty promises for decades now. I've signed a contract. I'm obligated to fulfill these particular policy positions. It's a tool, and it works if they just use it. As I said, it's not a purity test. It's a negotiation, and it's really up to the candidates. How do they want to do this? So what if we end up with two candidates who are CFAR candidates in the general election? Look at the contracts at that point. You can, if one has taken off 5 of the items and left 7, the other one's taken and left off, I'm sorry, that would be 6. Taken off 5 and left 6, and the other one is all 11, that might be the candidate to vote for. Or, depending on what those 6 remaining issues are, for example, if it's overturning Citizens United, and it's a 6-item Democrat versus a 11-item independent or green that has no budget, no ability to win a general election, you may want to go with a Democrat. It's a judgment at that point for each and every voter to make. But at least we know we have a CFAR candidate. At least we know there's a people's agenda. It might not be huge and broad like we want, but at least it's better than a potential neoliberal. So there's, on this one, as I said, there are tutorials. The first one comes from me just to explain how to find Democratic Party candidates. Sometimes they're only thinking about it, they're not formally announced yet. Maybe it's in the paper, you didn't buy that paper, how do you find it? I explain how to go out and find the candidates. Now, if you're in Debbie Wasserman-Schultz territory, district, you already know Tim Canova's running. So you go up to Tim and say, hey, Tim, I'm part of a nationwide movement called CFAR or lose. So if you want to win, take a look at this contract and sign it. It's a really good thing. The second tutorial on the tutorial page tab of the website is John explaining how to ask candidates to sign the contract. Because contract, ooh, is kind of scary to many people, not just candidates. So there's a very subtle, careful way of doing that. You don't want to scare them off with the leverage. If you don't sign this contract, you're going to lose. That's not the first thing you sell them. You tell them that, if they come back to you with, I don't think I'm going to sign it, or you give them a one-week deadline, sign it by the end of next week, or I'll have to go to another candidate. If that time comes and goes, and they haven't gotten back to you, then you follow up with, oh, by the way, no candidate who signs, no Democrat who refuses to sign a CFAR is going to win an election, because we're building a movement of voters pledged to support only CFAR candidates. If you can't CFAR, you're not going to get far. So there's a process there. Now the pledge, I'm almost done and then I'll take Q&A. The pledge has 3 levels of support. And it's based on political science. When Green Party candidates start winning elections to the House, or People's Party candidate starts winning elections to the House, this whole strategy is off. It's done. This is temporary. This is 2018 for now only. I'm hoping by 2020 it's over, because Bernie will join the People's Party, and fuck the Democrats. We're done with them. But for now, this is going into the midterms. We're going to do this again, and either get progressives elected to Congress or help defeat neoliberal Democrats and accelerate their demise, basically. Yeah. This is very intentional, out to get the Democrats who are in bed with Wall Street. So the first, for the pledge, voter pledge, is Democrat, CFAR first. If no Democrat is a CFAR candidate, second choice would be, not second choice, second choice would be a third party candidate, Green, whoever's on the ballot. If they sign the CFAR, that's the second choice. And in 43 states, the third choice is the write-in option. Right? Maybe someone will actually run as a write-in CFAR candidate. And if not, then, or maybe you haven't heard of him or her, then you sign the contract and write your own name in. It's a pledge to be a CFAR candidate only. So leverage activists then have to go out and find their candidate. Second thing they need to do is make a pledge form, so that people can become, you need to line up your pledge voters. We're building a network of networks. And the first network is people pledged, right? The pledge form includes their email address, so you can reach out to them and explain this 3-tier approach, for one thing. You can also say, we have a PAC now, we need some donations so we can help our CFAR candidate. There's a lot of reasons you want to build this network. And if you don't want a PAC and you don't want to raise money, you can do this on the cheap. And I'll talk about the relationship between asking a candidate to sign the contract and coordination, right? With a PAC, you have to be careful. You can't coordinate with a candidate. That's under evaluation. So the third tutorial on the tutorial tab is me explaining how to create one of these lists. And then once you have the form, the pledge form ready to go, I use Google Docs because it's free. Then you have your URL for the pledge form. And either leverage activists can go out and create a free blog that's Tim or Trash the Democratic Party. I mean, you can use any name you want for your blog if you know who your candidate's going to be. or a website. Either way, you can put your form there, and then you have a place to send voters to take the pledge. And if you're just not technically able or not really proficient, or you haven't hooked up with somebody else in your congressional district or state who can work with you, who knows how to start a blog or a website, you can contact us. We can use a page on the candidate's website. This is really just based on WordPress's format. So it's a blog. It just doesn't look like one. So any posts that come out can't be seen. Anybody just coming into this URL cannot see the posts. You can see the posts on here, because this is a blog. If you go down the way down the page, the posts are listed at the bottom. But on the candidate's website, you can't see the posts. So we can use posts on the candidate's website to put pledge forms for any candidate, any congressional district, any statewide state for Senate races. If you can't do it, we'll do it for you, in other words. That doesn't give us access to your database. It just gives us access to the form. The database, which comes out on comma separated values spreadsheet type things, you have access to because it's your Google Doc account. I don't have access to any Google Doc account except my own. So you get to build your database so you can figure out who you're going to reach out to, whether it's fundraising or network of networks. All right, so that's the first network. When you build a list of voters pledged to the CFAR candidate in your congressional district, let's say you have 10,000 voters. That's a lot for a congressional district. If you get 10,000 voters, that's a network of voters. You email them and explain to them, each build a list of email addresses of people in the congressional district for House races or the state for Senate races. So they're building a network. Right? So you have a network of 10,000 or 1,000 email contacts, and each of them has maybe 4, maybe 40, maybe I have 2,000 because I've been doing this, building this private, just a personal list, not the Bernier Bus list. Just before Bernier Bus, I had about 2,000 email addresses because I've been building this list for political reasons to advocate against TPP and whatnot for a couple of years, trading with other progressives. Hey, I got a list, you got a list, let's trade. Just to build that list up. So I have actually about 2,000 in my network, private network of email contacts.
From your congressional district?
All across the country. So most of them are New York because I had one of the things I did before Bernier Bust was I was with Move to Amend, and I was a statewide coordinator, and we actually managed eventually to get, Pocan this morning mentioned that there are 18 states that have called on Congress to amend the Constitution. New York State was 17. I was part of that effort. So you only go with, when you're asking a candidate to take the pledge, you only come back with, you're going to lose if you don't sign it, after they say no, or after you've given them enough time to say no. And then you're using email. So the idea of network of networks is actually stems from Naomi, not Klein, Wolf, in Give Me Liberty, the book. She writes about people becoming democracy commando multipliers. So democracy commando just means emailing people, right, on an action, opposition to a bill, support of a bill. By building a list, you have your own list, and she wants people to build lists. This is. I was building a list, and I read what he wrote in Give Me Liberty, and I said, oh, I've already been doing that. And I promoted this during Bernie and Bust. That's how we tried to help Bernie during the primaries, the second half of the primaries. Well, it was clear he was losing. I said, what are we going to do? We don't have money. We didn't really raise a lot of money. So we tried using this network of network ideas. Go out, I just tutored people in emails, in my email blast to everyone who took the pledge. Start making a list of everyone you know in your state, right? Because primaries are state by state. Get everyone you know, make a list and set it aside. And then next weekend, I'm going to send you another letter. You're going to forward that to all these people. Low-cost electioneering communications. Network of networks. if you're going to spend more than $999 as an individual, you need to form a PAC. So getting around that, you can have 4 or 5 of you each spending $998, and you'll be perfectly safe. You won't have to form a PAC, and you don't have to file any information with the FEC. I'm going to take Q&A just very soon.
I mean, that amount of money is a state law.
I understand it's a federal law.
Is it?
Federal's 5,000.
You can check on that. I believe that number is a federal FEC law. You can't spend more than $999, but if this is a state law, that's actually good. That means you actually have to do some research and find out what that number is in your state. And if necessary, or not if it's necessary, I assume some people are going to want to form a PAC. So I will actually add another tutorial to the tutorial tab on the activist website, telling people where to find the form on the FEC, how to file the documentation for PAC, they actually provide tutorials on how to fill out, or not fill out, but to file your reports. They're very good. My account representative is just very kind, very helpful. If I've made a mistake, oh, no problem, we just get in there and correct it. And I almost always have errors. I just call him up, and he tells me how to fix it. Now, there's a relationship between PACs and candidates that you can't coordinate, right? So the question is, and right now it's not a problem for anyone but us, because we're the ones with the Citizens Against Plutocracy Super PAC. So I have filed for an advisory opinion with the FEC to find out if, when I go to candidates, because it's our PAC, when I go to the Democrats or any other candidate and ask them to sign the CFAR, whether they do or not, at that point I walk away. Hopefully I have a CFAR candidate there, but at that point we're done talking to them, communicating with them. We don't coordinate with the campaign in any way, shape, form, or manner. Is that coordination? And we won't know until at the latest the end of next month, because I've got 60 days. And they're going to put that online, and when they put that online, I'll be sending a blast out to our Burn Your Bus pledge takers, asking them to leave comments in support of the advisory that we want, which is, this is not coordination. Right? We're not coordinating with the candidate in any way. We just want them to become a CFAR candidate. So and the lawyer I spoke to before, she suggested that going the route of advisory opinion, didn't think it was a problem. So we'll find out for sure. So just think of whether it's progressive or bust, or CFAR or lose 2018, think of this as hashtag war on neoliberalism, because that's what this is about. There was a time, I was just talking this morning at breakfast, there was a time in American history, 115 years ago, being a progressive was not a revolutionary stand. 3 out of 4 candidates for president were progressives. But neoliberalism has sort of come in and swarmed around us. It's like we're like fish, and it's the water we're swimming in. Most of us don't even realize we're living under a neoliberal regime. So we have over a half hour. I want to do Q&A for 15, 20 minutes, and then let's brainstorm. I'll write down your ideas. I want memes. I want low-cost electioneering communication or ideas. There was best practices, social media workshop yesterday. That's on the Revolt Against Plutocracy Facebook page, which can be found facebook.com/Revolt Against Plutocracy, all one word. On that is the social media. There's a lot of good ideas. I can't even begin, but that's the beauty here. I can just reference that recording and then leverage active. There's a tutorial on how to promote your candidate's CFAR pledge, right? Because each district will have their own. Go.
So 2 things. One, wouldn't it be better to do the petition with the voters first and say, before you go to the candidate, say, we've got 10,000 people pledged to only support somebody who signs the contract. Wouldn't that be more forceful or more persuasive to get the candidate to say, yeah, if you've got 10,000 people in my district who are only gonna vote for somebody who signs the contract, then that's.
Better, I would use the word more persuasive
Yeah.
for the candidate. Yes, sure. It doesn't matter. It's a chicken and egg question.
Well, no, I don't think so. If I go to you as or someone comes to me, I'm the candidate, and you know, it's just you and your 2-3 friends. Well, I don't know. This doesn't. But if you come to me with 10,000 signatures and say, I'm only going to vote for somebody who has signed this, that's going to be a lot more thought for me to say, well, I better think about this seriously because 10,000 people have said that they're only going to vote for this and that, and we're just starting the campaign.
Prioritize. Voter pledge. Good idea.
Okay, and secondly, this thing about on the second page of the pledge here, that if I violate or don't do everything, I'm going to give up my seat. And I mean that's.
It's a binding contract. Now.
Well, wait. A contract is a two-party thing.
Right, the candidate and the voters.
Yeah. Well, what's the voters doing?
If the candidate
But the voters
doesn't.
The contract should be signed by both parties.
The candidate actually could do that on his website. Trump did. Trump had people sign the contract. Of course, he's violated the contract, and nobody's taken him to court because he was going to list China as a currency manipulator, and he's changed his mind about that.
Well, I'm just talking about possibly softening this a bit. I mean,
So now you're talking about the contract author, who I didn't mention, is on a 3-week vacation. So we can't change the contents of the contract. I can write it down and we can suggest it when he gets home.
No, wait a minute. I can go to my candidate and I can change it however I want.
It's a negotiation, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, this is really strong language.
It's meant to be.
Yeah.
He's done that. He did that on purpose because he wants candidates to use it as a cudgel. Look, I'm not just committed to this. I'm legally bound to do this, or I have to walk out of office. It's a tactic. It's a mechanism.
Yeah, I don't think this is a legally binding contract.
I don't either. Right? But the author does believe it would be upheld. It's possible it will challenge standing law because right now you can't hold candidates to their promises. Right? You try to take them to court, you'll lose. Period. We know that. But we think because of the way the contract is written, strong, like you're pointing out, we think it might challenge standing law. It's possible. Good lawyer, who knows? In my opinion, no. Judge will throw it out. But the author thinks, Judge John Rachel, he's a political philosopher, novelist. He lives in Japan. He's the only one speaking on this website. My face doesn't show on the candidate's website, only on the activist website. But if you want to meet John, you can just go to the candidate's website.
How do you, you said that politicians would be able to opt out of certain ones of the points, right?
Yep.
So is that before they've signed the
Yep.
contract? Okay, all right.
Yeah, so they can download as a Word document and then enable editing and just take out what they want. And add Medicare for all.
So at what point does it become overly diluted?
Well, I've tried to address that. You know, if you have competition among CFAR candidates, and one's diluted it down to 2 or 3 items, the other one's all 11 items, and added a couple more. Now he or she is in competition with other CFAR candidates. Right? So if a 2-item CFAR Democrat is competing with a 13-item People's Party candidate, then the voters can decide who's the stronger candidate. Who can we trust? This is a way to eliminate trust.
Like a point system. You get a point system.
It's kind of like a point system, and it's up to voters to make that decision to weigh the contracts. And the idea would be the leverage activists could have the contracts scanned, converted to JPEGs, placed on their blog, their website, or our candidate website, so that they can send out that particular URL for that particular post to voters, right? Using social media, using their network of networks and other things. By the way, network of networks. I only called this democracy commando multiplication, the network of networks. Someone has a question over here?
Well, as a follow-up,
Go ahead.
if someone cuts it down to 1 point, for example,
Mhm.
do they get to attach the brand? Because the brand, CFAR, is
Mhm.
supposed to signify the candidate who stands basically for these things, someone who can be trusted.
Mhm.
So it seems to me that there should be a point at which that person no longer gets to call themselves and attach that brand to their name.
You know, I've thought about this just very briefly, and I haven't gone down to one point. I always thought, well, 3 or 4 would be good enough. But you're framing a worst case scenario of a 1 point 1 point CFAR candidate versus everyone else.
And someone who doesn't get into the minutia thinks, does that person really deserve the trust that is supposed to come with that brand and that label?
You know, for me, if I were the voter in that district, I would look at that one issue that was left. If it was eliminating Citizens United, that would be good enough for me. If there was no other CFAR candidate, and the one item left was eliminating Citizens United, I would go with that CFAR candidate. On the other hand, if the only thing left behind was getting out of CAFTA and NAFTA, that's not really in Congress's hands. All they can do is sponsor or co-sponsor a resolution to the president to pull out of those agreements. So if that was the one item left behind, I wouldn't be. He or she would be a CFAR candidate, but I'd probably write in myself. I'd sign the contract and write in my own name as an 11-point CFAR candidate. That's the beauty of write-ins, which is, if you're in one of the 7 states where there's no write-in option, what are you going to do? Vote for the one and only CFAR candidate, or we're not even advising those voters on what that third option would be. If they don't have a write-in option, good luck. Let's just come up with an idea and use it, because remember, point 2 is to defeat the neoliberal Democrat and accelerate the demise of the neoliberal Democratic Party. So there's always that. You can always vote Republican. If you're in Nevada, Greens weren't on the ballot in 2018, so they might not be on the ballot, and there's no write-in option. I actually bring this up in Bernie or Bust. If I were in Nevada and I had no choice, I had to choose between those 3 candidates, I would have voted for Trump.
I would have voted for Gary Johnson.
He supported TPP.
Well,
In the vast majority of districts, anyway, it's actually kind of a one-party monopoly.
Mm-hmm.
So, these districts are drawn so that it's a Democratic district, and the Democrats...
Or Republican.
Or Republican, that's right.
Republican.
Yeah, or Republican, and so that party has a monopoly.
Yep.
So what leverage do you have on that monopoly candidate to sign this at all? Why should they, when they know that they're going to win and no third party is going to get in their way because it's not a swing district?
And they're usually an incumbent.
And they're often an incumbent.
Yeah, I'm in one of those districts.
You're only talking about swing districts.
I
the
should,
only place where it has any leverage.
you're probably right.
Well, how about
This may only
primary?
be a swing district strategy. I should have started out with a warning. I don't think on my feet. Let me
Don't ask any
sleep.
questions.
Let me sleep on that question, and I'll
Sure,
get back
sure,
to you
sure.
tomorrow.
Great.
But that's one reason I would never run for office, because I'm not a fast thinker. I think I reflect on things and realize, oh, I should have said.
Well, I think I would say that if the effort was to convince people in the primaries to support a progressive over a neoliberal,
Yes.
then
It's a
in the
primary
primaries
strategy.
supposed to
Right.
push people in the
Right,
primaries.
and who are the primaries? Supposedly, Justice Democrats are running all over the place. They are the people that ask to sign the CFAR. And brand new Congress Democrats have to sign a contract to run as brand new Congress Democrats. So they've already signed one, they probably will sign another. This is a strategy to use against blue dog, safe Democrats and defeat them.
Well, there are a lot of Democrats that are not blue dogs that are still safe.
Right.
I mean,
They're pro-corporate, yeah.
Yeah, that are neoliberal more or less.
Right.
And they're not going to, my congressman is not going to lose. I mean, he's there for as long as he wants to be a Democrat. And I don't think this is going to...
Is he being challenged?
Who is
I
he?
don't know.
Who is he?
Ben Ray Lujan in northern New Mexico, head of the DCCC. He's not going to lose, you know?
Actually, you're in a very good spot to sort of give the DCCC the heads up on this. You can go to him.
We're organizing to meet with him and deal with this. But
You can let him know.
The head of the guy
this
with the
is not
leaks?
going to work against him.
No, but
there's nobody who's
but
going to beat him in northern New Mexico.
You
His father was an institution there for years, and there's just no way that he was going to beat him.
Well, I mean, so what's the worst case scenario? This doesn't go here. The worst case scenario is you make the effort, it doesn't work, you end up with him, you're stuck with him, but you end up with, you build your voter pledge to build lists of progressives. So you're building a network.
We are.
Yeah.
Already.
So you can use this to strengthen that network, to broaden that network, to get other people to sign a voter pledge. These are going to be progressive people, and within that congressional district, you're building for the future. And eventually, a strong enough progressive will come along and unseat that person.
He's only 40 years old or something. He's going to be good for a long time.
Just as a note, not to interrupt,
Just a second.
but there's a group, Leslie Uphold, who wrote Runaway Inequality. He's training 30,000 people to teach his message. And so he has a pledge. After you do his course, he has a pledge that's very, very similar to this. And so he has his own, you might want to hook up with him because he has a pledge like this, and he's trying to get like tens of thousands of voters to sign.
Is his address in the book?
Yeah. I mean, you can get on his website in the book of
Okay.
Reversing Runaway Inequality.
I'll get my hands on that book.
Have you thought of some visual way to say, this is a 5-star CFAR candidate, and this is a 3.5-star or something? I mean, 11 is pretty close to 10, so.
Visually rank candidates.
Les, what's his name?
Leslie Uphold, he wrote Runaway.
He's a labor guy.
Stars.
Yeah, since what we're about is doing away with the two-party system, I know we're focusing on eventually getting rid of the neoliberals. What would happen to, the GOP? Wouldn't they also shrink since people are pretty fed up with them too?
No idea, and I don't care.
I don't care either.
I don't know. I mean, I really haven't given it much thought. I will say this.
Yeah.
This idea of leverage is not ideological. We are drawing a line in the sand for progressives, but there's no reason libertarians can't draw a line. I was trying to get before we launched the website in June of 2015. I was trying to reach out to Rand Paul's supporters and get them to do a Paul or bust movement and draw a line in the sand for libertarians. They can do the same thing on the other side. That's
I'm saying the question is meant to get you to think about how it would affect, whether or not they, it affects them not only in that district but in other districts, and and whether or not the party would, reach out like wildfire all over.
Well, that's what we're hoping for. That's why one of the first things
I'm not talking just about getting rid of the neoliberals from the Democratic Party. Getting rid of the Democratic Party.
One thing I want to be careful of as an activist is taking on too much.
Well, yeah, I'm
going to stay focused on defeating neoliberal Democrats. And yeah, I want to see neoliberal Republicans. I want to see conservatives wake up and realize that corporations are in control and to try to take this country back. We have an agenda. I haven't talked about our agenda.
I'm not talking about taking on too much.
It sounds it.
I'm sorry.
Because I just want to stay focused on Democrats. Democrats
right.
And then third-party CFAR candidates in the writing. Just a very simple,
little bit at a time.
Just keep it as simple as possible.
Possible. No, I know what you're... No, I didn't mean to make it sound like...
I think the Republicans will do whatever the Republicans do. The one answer I will give you is, if they don't do this, if they don't become CFAR candidates, then we'll strengthen the Republican Party. We'll actually strengthen them in Congress. We may have to go through 2 or 3 cycles.
Strengthen them, meaning?
Democrats get defeated. If we're out to defeat neoliberal Democrats with progressive third party or write-in spoilers, that's what spoilers mean. We're going to spoil the chances of the neoliberal, and the upshot will be the Republican wins. That's the threat we're making. That's what it means by leverage. That's what Bernie or bust was. If you don't nominate Bernie Sanders, you're going to lose, and Donald Trump will get elected.
No, I am saying I don't want to see the right wing come in either.
Well, then you probably don't want to become a leverage activist.
No, I want to be a leverage activist.
That's what we're doing, is basically threatening to let the Republicans win by intentionally dividing the left between liberals and progressives.
I'm not talking about what I agree with the need to lose the Democratic Party. I want to see that happen. I'm saying both of the parties are terrible.
So are you focusing on swing states, on swing districts?
No, we're focusing on 468 races, all of them.
Oh, you're talking about the Senate too now.
Right. 33 Senate seats and 4. Now, we actually had a debate about exempting the 5 House incumbents and the 1 senator who, all 6 of them who endorsed Bernie Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, I don't want this done. My opinion, don't do this in the races. They endorse Bernie Sanders. Just join their campaign, help them win their election. They're heroes in my
Maybe he would reduce the number, but he would sign something with at least 4 or 5 or 6 of them.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea. We do want
And that
them to
would be
become
good
CFAR
examples.
candidates and help lead this effort.
Yeah.
We could certainly Mark Pocan and who's the other guy around today? Rick Nolan. They certainly should also be able to sign this without hesitation. I think Keith might remove the point on getting out of Afghanistan. I think he's a little weak on foreign policy,
A little bit.
like Bernie Sanders was. We were always critical of Bernie Sanders. We were not Sandernistas. We weren't. We were critical of his foreign policy and some of his votes.
Now, just something like this, even with what you wrote on the board, if you get the signatures and you get everything down, plus the contract that you have here, if you have a star system like you have on the board, what that actually does is it helps to expose also candidates like, and I'm sorry to say it, but a candidate like a Cory Booker, somebody who raised a 10-year career on lowering pharmaceutical prices for senior citizens, drafted up the bill, and when it came down, and he never thought it was going to go to the floor for vote. And when it went to the floor for vote, he was crapping his pants. And then it came around, it was his vote was the deciding vote, and he voted against what he had wrote up.
Yeah, I tweeted him about that. You're on our shit list.
So something like this would help to expose someone like that.
Yeah, no, well, our thing, he's a neoliberal. I think that's pretty clear the way he responded to some of Obama's electioneering. So our feeling is that neoliberals aren't going to sign this contract. And if they do sign this contract,
If they don't
Then
sign it,
expose him.
right, that's right.
You said the contract is in a Word document on the... So
It's in a Word document, it's in a text file document, it's in a JPEG document, and it's in a PDF
all on the
document.
website.
All on the, it's a website, so that has tabs, right? So the CFAR's tab has
On which website? Both of them?
the top candidates, that's what I put up here.
Oh, not on the...
We have a picture of the House version. Thanks. Brain freeze. Here, and we point people here to here, so they can go out and get any version, the Senate version, in any format they want. So we make it available; they can go get it. So now, I want to follow up my question this morning with you. Run candidates. I'm not going to get to Washington. I'll tell you that right now. I'm working that weekend. I've already looked into it. But if I were there, I'd be advocating run candidates. Run CFAR candidates in the midterms. That's why the Republicans took two or three election cycles before Lincoln came along and won the national election. Right?
Yeah.
So I think you should get it going.
It helps promotion too. If you have candidates at a state and local level for your individual party, it does help with promotion for the much larger federal picture.
Sure, and it also builds experience compromising in legislatures and so forth.
Yes, sir.
Right. That's what we're going to discuss in Washington. Yeah.
Any other questions? Any other ideas? Any other memes? It's got to be more than CFAR or you won't get far.
We'll make some memes.
You can contact me with memes or ideas, and we can get them on the website. Remember, we're still building this website. So it's 4:30. My time. Eastern Standard Time is 4:30. That's my alarm clock. You can...
I thought it was me. Is that a calculator watch?
It's what do they call them? There's a name for them. Chronograph.
Is there a fresher pen that you could use on the board?
Is that too late?
I'm running out of ink for it.
Yeah, try the other one.
That's a long email I just write twice.
That's your email.
That's your email?
Yeah. So if you think of a meme or an idea for electioneering communication, I've already talked about some, right? Network of networks. One thing that we learned, one of our pledge takers got a hold of me, because the first email I ever sent out to every pledge taker was, go out and get 2 more people to take this pledge. We tried to use network marketing. We thought, if everyone would just do that, right? Every Bernie crack who took this pledge would go out and just sign up just 2 more people. Just 2. My God, it's not a lot. It's not a big deal. Just go out and get 2 people to take this and do it within a day or 2. We'd have gone from 1 signature to 1 million signatures in a month. That's what network marketing does. And if you're selling stuff that way, it's illegal. It's an illegal pyramid. But if you're just recruiting people, it's a perfectly legal strategy to build an email list. That didn't work. So let me give you an idea that did work, what we ended up using. For, again, I haven't put it on the activist website yet, but it's worth bringing into this recording. When you get, if you're a leverage activist and you got your pledge and you're building your pledge, and you got, say, a couple hundred or even 100, email them and ask for volunteers to recruit more people, more pledge takers. That's how we built. That's the main way we built this. We actually had a platoon of around 150, 160 people who we contacted asking for help because the network marketing idea, just go get 2 people, didn't work. People weren't doing that. They just weren't doing that. So we asked for volunteers to step up and go out and recruit, go find people. And that's, a few people, each mailing, I get 5 people to volunteer and do this. And that's their activity, this platoon of activists out there recruiting on Facebook and Twitter and websites and so forth, is how we finally got this thing actually start taking off. We use some other techniques, but ask your pledge takers to volunteer and help out, because that's how we built the Burn Your Bus Pledge.
So what we do at Get Money Out Maryland, we're working on a resolution in the Maryland General Assembly, is we pick a site where we're going to petition, and then we email our volunteers, or call them even better if you have their phone number, and say, this Saturday at 9 a.m. we're going to be at the blah blah farmers market.
Well, you mean physical site?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and farmers markets are great, and if it's a little nippy out and there's a hot coffee line, that's a really, really great way to get people signed stuff.
The problem with that is, we did very little offline stuff. the problem with that is you need someone to transcribe this stuff back into your electronic
That is true.
forms
We do.
again, and it does create a
We've
little bit
done
of a...
6,000, and we've got basically 2 people that volunteer to do that.
Wow.
So on-site, offline recruitment.
Right. The good thing about it is the people who are at the farmers market together may start to form a bond, and you know, and we've had things like this where we have 10, 15 people doing it at a time.
So let me just tell you how we did it. We did some off-work recruitment for
Yeah.
Bernie or Bust, because we had their email address, and I was able to attach a form. It was just a quarter sheet document, so it was 8.5 by 11 that they had to cut into quarters. If Bernie's speaking in your town,
Yeah.
go to the rally early before they start letting people in, and just get to the front of the line and hand these sheets out. If you can do 200, that's great. If you do 50, that's better than nothing.
Yeah.
When he came to, I don't know how many people did this for us, but when he came to Binghamton, I walked my talk, and I took 2,000 flyers to Binghamton and handed them out to people, and then I had to run off to work. That was like 6:30 in the morning until 8 when I had to clock in and take off and go to work. And I found out from someone who was at that rally later on, people were chanting, going in and coming out, Bernie your boss, Bernie your boss. I'll never forget the first time I saw that online. It was one of his rallies, and he sort of paused and hesitated in something he was saying, and someone off to his left yelled, Bernie your boss! And he sort of looked over, and then people out there started chanting, Bernie your boss, Bernie your boss. That was the first time I saw that, and I realized, oh shit, this thing's taking off. And the second time was at the second Nevada caucus, when some person raised a chair and they said they accused of chair throwing and that they rigged the whole thing and they jammed that vote through, and people were furious. And that was a ruckus. That was a big major news story.
Yeah.
About 60 seconds after they closed that vote, there was a lot of ruckus, a lot of noise, and all of a sudden, for about 60 seconds, Bernie your bust, Bernie your bust was chanted at that caucus.
So, if I may, the Bernie or bust, like Bernie or bust is a very attractive phrase. Like, you put that on social media and it's like, hey man, yeah, I'm Bernie or bust, right? It's really easy to get on board with. I have to say that CFAR or lose is a pretty unattractive phrase.
Let me tell you something about CFAR, or Bernie or Bust. After we launched the website, we launched it as WINS, the WINS Pledge, right in November, Sanders. And then on social media, someone wrote Bernie or Bust, and we used that as our Twitter account name. Back in early July of 2015, it was actually available. And then we had that for just a few days, and we realized, holy crap, this phrase is golden. So we dumped WINS. And what I'm saying is, if you come up with a better phrase, we're all ears. Just because we're launching this weekend, essentially. This workshop is the launch of this strategy.
You want someone in this room to suggest it right now. Right?
Yeah, go ahead. If you got a better idea, if you got a better idea for this, we went with this because the acronym says something.
Well, not if you don't know what it is. It doesn't say anything to me.
Yeah.
It only says something to me because you've explained it, and even after you've explained it, I have to remind myself, like, what does that mean? Oh, it's a contract, yeah. Like, it's not, it doesn't mean anything to most people.
It's good news, bad news. You're pointing out the bad news. It might be good news because people don't know what it is, so they investigate it. Bernie or Bust, you're right. It had this intuitive sort of thing to it, even though, again, or bust was misinterpreted by the media over and over and over again. So some people got it right. I think MSNBC had it right, and that's why they wouldn't talk about it. But yeah, I mean, if we don't come up with something better, the flip side of that is, what the hell's CFAR? I'll click on it just to find out. And then it gets them there. And the reason we're not referring to this as a progressive, it's not progressive or bust, is because any political label, conservative, liberal, progressive, Tea Party, immediately and automatically shuts some people's minds off. We want people to get in there and read that contract and find out what these popular ideas are. And some people who, maybe they're liberal, maybe they're moderate, who support these policy positions, might not think of themselves as progressive. I don't know, I go there, I'm not progressive. But they support every one of those positions. So that's why we ditch progressive.
We did it for the same reason, right?
Yeah.
We're called the Incorruptibles.
Yeah.
And we got, there's, in our area, in the Bay Area, there's all these progressive alliances. There was the Richmond Progressive Alliance, there's the Berkeley Progressive Alliance, there's the, the Fremont, Newark Progressive Alliance. They're all called Progressive Alliance. And, we have people in Omaha, Nebraska, and Lincoln, Nebraska, and they're like, you put progressive in the name, like, forget it, we're sunk. We'll never
Right.
have an organization here. So part of why we're called the Incorruptibles, because
I have your card,
it's
I'm certainly
intriguing.
going to be in touch with you, and either over email or phone calls or somehow brainstorm.
That reminds me of that Disney movie.
The Incredibles?
Yeah.
Question?
Could the word contract be more accessible to people? Sign the contract, I don't know.
One candidate, the first candidate I asked, guy he's running as Mark Twain, I'm not making this up. He's an actor, so he's performed Mark Twain before, and he's running as Samuel Clemens, he's running as Mark Twain. He's literally running in my district, in the Democratic primaries, as Mark Twain. And I said you should use Ronald Reagan's line. There were people that were supporting him in 1980. Why not an actor? We've had a clown for 6 years. And he was going to be a leverage candidate. Before the contract idea came along from John, he was going to run as a Democrat in the primaries, and if he didn't win the primary, he was going to run as a write-in candidate. You can leverage. You don't have to be a CFAR to do leverage, but you don't have to be a progressive to do leverage either. You can, Trump is the only other candidate I actually heard use the word leverage. The first question, the first Republican debate, the first answer was Trump saying, well, I may not endorse the ultimate candidate, right? Whoever wins the nomination, I may not endorse him. Everyone else said they'd endorse him, not Trump. He didn't raise his hand. So they went right back to him and said, why not? Leverage. I might run as an independent. He understood it. He got it right away. And that's the word he used. So, I mean, you can run as a leverage candidate. You don't even have to be a progressive. But you'll be hugely hated by Democrats. But that doesn't matter. If you do it right, you can still win the primary that way. But that's not what we're after. We're after progressives. We want this line the same. So I'm actually reaching out to a guy who just spent, a candidate who just spent, I'm giving up on my friend. This isn't easy for me.
How about renew?
Because I knew this guy.
Renew or lose?
Even having lose, lose in the title. Like, nobody wants to click on anything that lose.
Come up
Bust
with a better
is totally
idea.
different, right? Bust, this or bust, like it's a...
For the people,
Well, the reason we
For
avoided
the
the
win?
word bust
Yeah.
this time around is because last time around, it was a bust. Our primary objective was to get Bernie the nomination. That wasn't, we didn't want to have Donald Trump. That just had to be the fallback position.
Or else.
Well, we actually had a Facebook page called Bernie or Else. By the way, this is a recruitment tool, which I haven't covered, and I think I covered it in the book. But since we're talking about this, you can build a Facebook page called Your Candidate or Else, or whoever what name that candidate is. You don't have to mention CFAR. And invite people to that page as, not necessarily administrators, but editors or something, so that they have the ability to invite people to that page. And they have then add more people to invite people to that page. And that page points people to your pledge form. That's another way we built the movement, was to just use a random, it was Bernie or Else page. So it's not, you're not thinking CFAR or Else, right? You're thinking what? Or Else?
Renew.
because it is contract for renewal.
Yeah.
We actually changed our Revolt logo for the candidate's website, because the logo is this big R built into the flag. Right, so it's red, white, and blue, and then this is blue, big wide R, and we had an arrow across it. This is the Revolt Against Plutocracy logo based on Hillary's logo. She was pointing her arrow to the right, we wanted to be to the left.
Contract or stay home?
Because we've discussed that. That was one of the ideas that got thrown out. We do not want to advocate staying home. We're not protesters, we're revolutionaries. Right? Remember, our picture is dropping a ballot into a ballot box. So the last thing any of us on the committee want to advocate is staying home and not voting.
So voting for Trump is better than staying home?
Remember, the only state where that was a possibility, and some of the people got back to me and said they were going to do that because Nevada has no write-in option, and Jill Dinstein didn't get on the ballot there. And even in Bernie or Bust, my choice, if I were in Nevada, would have been to leave that line blank on the ballot. But if I were absolutely forced to choose among those three, I would vote for Trump because he was against the TPP. The other two were for the TPP. Yes, Hillary was for the TPP. She was lying, and I'm convinced she was lying about that. And there were people who sort of conveyed the fact that she was lying about that. All that's documented in Bernie or Bust, the book.
What about CFAR for the win?
Because this actually was suggested, this idea of or lose came from our we're done. So very quickly, it came from our billboard that we ran in Philadelphia that said, nominate Sanders or lose. And someone suggested, nominate Sanders and win. And we rejected that because we wanted to be very explicitly threatening the superdelegates. You nominate Sanders or you're going to lose in November.
Gotcha.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Share this online, please.
RAP didn't become political revolutionaries because of Bernie Sanders. RAP originated the Bernie or Bust pledge because we're political revolutionaries. We are building a leverage movement to demand the next president of the United States is a genuine progressive. Please go to our website and sign up to join us today.